Your Jet 24, Fox 66 local election headquarters coverage of the Pennsylvania State Senate debate starts now.
Republican State Senator Dan Laughlin, a former home builder, beats a one-term incumbent Democrat 4 years ago to win his seat in the Pennsylvania State Senate. He represents most of Erie County. Now he's seeking his first re-election, facing Democratic challenger Julie Slomski. She's no stranger to politics or state government. The candidate working in the Erie office of Governor Tom Wolf and is also former chief of staff for a local state representative. The campaign has been brutal on both sides at times in recent weeks, with the candidates trading charges, slugging it out in high-profile TV advertising. It's just days before the election, and tonight we sort it all out face-to-face with the candidates. Hello, I'm Sean Lafferty, your moderator for tonight's debate. On behalf of our debate partners, Mercyhurst University and the Manufacturer and Business Association, we want to thank you for joining us. Now, let's meet the candidates. On your left is the incumbent Republican State Senator Dan Laughlin. On your right, the challenger, Democratic candidate Julie Slomski. We want to thank you both for joining us tonight, first off. And here are our three panelists who will quiz the candidates this evening. Jet 24 and Fox 66 political reporter Scott Bremner. Scott's also the morning talk show host on Jet Radio 1400 in Erie. Mercyhurst University professor and political analyst Dr. Joe Morris. And Jesri Friend, the senior government relations representative for the Manufacturer and Business Association. My thanks to all three of them. Our panelists are really here in the studio with us. However, we are staying socially distant. They'll be appearing on camera one at a time. The rules of the debate tonight, very simple. There will be no opening statements. The candidates will have 90 seconds to answer a question. The other candidate will then have 45 seconds to respond. At the end of the debate, we're allowing each candidate time for a closing statement. I reserve the right to follow up with either candidate on a topic or ask a question submitted from our social media audience. We want to begin our questions tonight with Jet 24's Scott Bremner. Scott?
Good evening. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, candidates, for being here. My first question has to do with a pandemic economic recovery. We believe that medically we will get over the COVID-19 pandemic at some point, but what may be in its wake are some widespread debt, not only nationally, but at state level, local level, businesses, individual taxpayers. What are some of your thoughts for rebuilding eventually state coffers and try to eliminate some of the debt that exists statewide, given that there may not be an easy solution, there may not be taxes that could be raised because businesses and homeowners simply don't have the funds?
Well, Scott, thank you for that question. And obviously there's a lot of viewers that have that on their mind as well. Most of the folks that are watching, or at least many of them, are aware that the state is roughly $4.5 billion in the red right now. And that's not something that we can get over very easily. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, which will deal with this as we head back in the fall. We are hopeful, and I say hopeful, that the federal government will provide another round of CARES Act funding, which should help plug some of those gaps. If that doesn't come through, we have some serious expenditures to take a look at to try and do some stopgap. We have the ability to borrow money as a state. And I would say as a very absolute last resort, we may look at a tax increase or a fee increase to try and help out with that. But that would be a last resort.
All right, 45 seconds now for Julie Slomski, the Democratic challenger. Same question, Julie.
Thank you, Scott. That's a great question. I hear that quite a lot. And I think it comes down to two important, areas of opportunity. Let's legalize marijuana. We need to legalize marijuana, decriminalize it, and expungement needs to be a part of that. I've heard from so many folks all throughout the district, and I'm on board for that. Another one is a common sense severance tax. We have this asset underneath the Commonwealth, and we're the only state, here in the U.S. with active drilling does not have a common sense severance tax. Those are two areas of opportunity that we have. Most importantly, we need a senator here in the 49th district that will stand up to leadership and fight for our fair share. That's what we need.
All right, second question now, and we're going to introduce Dr. Joe Morris from Mercyhurst University. And I want to remind our panelists tonight to please start by telling us which candidate you'll be directing your question to. Dr. Morris?
Sure.
Ms. Slomski, the last time you were on this debate stage, the first two questions both of the candidates were asked concerned the pandemic. However, since the last time you were on the debate stage, it's become apparent that this pandemic is by no means over. My question for you is, what do we need to do right now to deal with this issue?
Thank you, Dr. Morris. Again, another great key question. And I think about these people I've talked to all throughout this journey, especially even just recently, that have lost a loved one during this pandemic or have a loved one struggling right now for their lives. And we need to be responsible. We need to wear our mask. We don't need to be on the Senate floor not wearing a mask, being within the social distance limits. We need to make sure we're wearing our masks, keeping our distance, and of course, following the simple rules of hand sanitizing. I mean, we need to protect each other. We need to be neighborly. This is the time to protect our neighbors, our friends and your family, our neighbors. We're all one party together. We need to help each other out, not be disrespectful, and not take this pandemic seriously. Wearing a mask is number one. We need to make sure we're doing that. Again, very grateful for the setup tonight where we can be socially distant, but we're on the Senate floor and we're celebrating with our colleagues. That's a time we need to make sure we're wearing our mask. Protect one another. Stop the spread.
Response now from Senator Dan Laughlin. Senator, 45 seconds, please.
Well, sure, Sean. I know what my friend here is referring to, and I will tell you that our desks on the Senate floor, our seats are 6 feet apart and the rows are 7 feet apart. We're actually farther apart than Julia and I are tonight. So we followed the guidelines, and she's trying to make an issue out of it. We wear our masks when we go out, we're in the hallways, when we go to stores. I've been a proponent of wearing the mask. I know that that is a very successful tool in trying to keep this virus from spreading, and I'm on board with that.
All right, the third question will be coming from Jesri Friend tonight. Jesri, as I said at the top of the debate, from the Manufacturer and Business Association. Jesri?
Thanks, Sean. My first question will be for Senator Laughlin, since Ms. Slomski just went. And sticking with the COVID topic, I want to talk about how the business closures first went down this spring in the initial kind of shock phase that we all hit, and the waiver program that ensued. Specifically, maybe many businesses have questioned whether Pennsylvania's approach to COVID-19, and some, honestly, they just won't survive. In response to the ongoing investigation to Pennsylvania's business closure waivers, the Auditor General recently released the following statement on October 6th. Quote, "The waiver program appears to be a subjective process built on shifting sands of changing guidance, which led to significant confusion among business owners. Our analysis is this was not a level playing field for businesses across Pennsylvania," end quote. Senator, and to respond, Ms. Slomski, how should Pennsylvania respond in respect to businesses should COVID cases rise, and does this include more shutdowns or a similar waiver program? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question, Jesri. And I want to start this answer out with a couple things. When this pandemic first came to America, we were on board with the 2-week shutdown to flatten the curve and make sure our hospital systems weren't overwhelmed. And most of us in the legislature felt that that was important to do, and we were on board with that. I think where the governor and the rest of the legislature parted ways was when the governor decided to take everything into his own hands. Now, the waiver process was not transparent. There were no clear guidelines. There were businesses that were operating right across the street from each other, competing in the same line of work, where one had a waiver and one didn't. And that was not a fair or transparent process. Now, throughout this pandemic, I don't fault the governor for caring about people. The legislature cares about people's health and safety. But this waiver process for the business community was completely non-transparent, and it also seemed slightly partisan. So as we move forward, and it looks like we're going to get another COVID surge, at least that's what it's starting to appear like, we should have had these issues worked out long ago, but the governor has refused to work with us.
All right, response now from Julie Slomski. Julie, 45 seconds on this question from Jesri.
Thank you. And thank you again, Desiree, for that question as well. We keep hearing uncharted waters, unprecedented times, that's for sure, but we're still in a public health crisis. And that's the one thing we need to really make sure we're not losing sight of. People are losing their lives. And yes, we need to help our businesses, survive and work with them as best as possible. I was not involved with the waiver, program and the specifics of that by any means. But again, it's something that I think should be clear and transparent, providing opportunities for various different businesses, no matter what part of the state they're in or no matter what their industry is. But again, we're still in a public health crisis. Need to help working together as a whole.
All right, round 2 for questioning begins now. We're going to head back to Jet 24 and Jet 1400s. Scott Bremner for the next question here. Scott?
Thank you, Sean. And this is for Ms. Slomski. I believe it's her turn to start. Let me ask about one of the things the county governments say to us over and over again about what is an ongoing problem for them. And that is the idea of unfunded mandates. If you don't know what that is, it is Harrisburg passing a law or making a requirement of a school district or a community that then does not come with any accompanying funding. And as a result, people locally are scrambling to try to find the dollars. That over and over again has been told to us as an ongoing problem that local governments have to deal. What is your thoughts about unfunded mandates? Do you believe if Harrisburg requires a local community to do something, there should be the accompanying dollars to make that happen?
Thank you for that question, Scott. And I think, I don't know if there's a specific unfunded mandate that you're referencing, but I think it is something that we need to really work together. Like I said, this all comes down to, fighting for our fair share, making sure dollars are here. So I see what you mean in terms of if there's an unfunded, as people call it, supposed unfunded mandate, the dollars should follow. We need to make sure that we're helping out from every aspect. Like I mentioned, we have an opportunity to legalize marijuana, to fill that budget gap. And of course, the common sense severance tax. Those are ways to help us financially to bring us on more solid footing. And that's what we need to focus on as we're still fighting and challenging. It's a terrible time during this pandemic, and that's what we need to really worry about is how do we help each other move forward. And again, I go back to that. A legalization of marijuana and a common sense severance tax are two options to help us close that gap and finally be able to move forward on more solid financial footing.
45 seconds for a response to Dan Laughlin now on the same question from Scott Bremner. Dan?
Well, as you're aware, Scott, I believe in smaller government than my friend here. And I can assure you, if there's a mandate that comes from Harrisburg, that comes from my side of the aisle, or at least from me, I will make sure that the funding comes with it. Because trying to put stuff on local governments without paying for it is just a tax shift, and I'm not for that. So I want you to know, anybody watching tonight, if there's a mandate that comes out of Harrisburg, I will try and make sure that the funding comes with it.
Next question to Dr. Joe Morris. Dr. Morris, who's your question for?
Senator Laughlin. A recent report card by a nationally recognized group specializing in infrastructure gave Pennsylvania a C- overall for its infrastructure. Another group in 2017 that based its analysis on federal data identified Pennsylvania's roads as among the worst in the country. What is it that the state should be doing in the next couple of years to improve the state's infrastructure, if anything?
Well, as you're aware, Dr. Morris, we have, I believe it's the second highest gasoline tax in the country, and that was geared towards our road and infrastructure, our highway infrastructure. Now, I will tell you that the PennDOT, they've been working very hard on our roads, and I've noticed the improvement. I drive the length of the state. I've noticed that there's been a lot of maintenance done on that end. As far as the rest of the infrastructure goes, much like most of the country, Pennsylvania is a state that is aging, and our infrastructure does need, updated, if you will. And one of the things that we need to update probably more rapidly than whether we're fixing a pothole or not is the rural broadband issue that we have right now. And that came to light with the pandemic and the school closures and really showed the inequities that occur between rural and urban areas. And that's one of the things that I intend to focus on when I get back. And we're talking about where to put some of the CARES Act money, and that'll go towards rural broadband.
45 seconds for a response to Julie Slomski now. Ms. Slomski.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for that question. And it comes down to, when I was working for the Wolf administration, we had a great opportunity to address infrastructure, including rural broadband that Senator is speaking about. And that was a Restore Pennsylvania program, where there was that, common sense severance tax, as I mentioned already, but this is how we have this opportunity to fill those funding gaps, because yes, we could improve upon our roads and our bridges, and there is, an area of opportunity there. But again, the dollars have to come from somewhere. And this is where we need to really fight for what's right, not talk about it. We've heard a lot of talk and a lot of pandering. We need someone to actually stand up and fight and make sure those dollars come back here.
Okay, you're watching a debate between the candidates for the 49th District Pennsylvania State Senate seat, Senator Dan Laughlin and Democratic challenger Julie Slomski. When we come back, the two continue their face-off.